Want to get some coffee or something?
Can I get a cup of coffee? Black? Can't you see we talking? White?
Even little kids in Mexico drink coffee.
Well, I'm not a little kid in Mexico, okay?
That is the best coffee I've ever tasted.
A damn fine cup of coffee.
You want a cup of coffee?
No coffee.
Coffee drinker, huh?
Maybe we could grab some coffee?
Coffee! Coffee, 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 coffee!
How you doing, fellas? That's not decaf, is it?
Viennese cinnamon.
Hello. Welcome to Morning Coffee. I'm Chris. My grandfather used to host Morning Coffee for Gary's grandfather. The rates have gone up, of course. Welcome to the Halloween episode. We've got cats. We've got blown skits because of cats. Hello, Monkey Jeebus. Monkey Jabus. Thank you. Come again. I don't get it. What's the joke? It's me, Christopher. Anyway, we're doing Halloween recommendations today. And let's just hop right into it. Let's get everyone on. Das Wolfen. Or, on the month of Halloween, Nosferatu Bubengraben. I've heard he's got an enormous Spannstucker. Joe's Atmosphere. Welcome.
Good morning,
and,
sir.
Course, Martin. So is everybody getting into the Halloween spirit?
My favorite time of the year, brother. Football's on, and there's scary movies everywhere. Love it.
And you mentioned Oktoberfest, so you're going to get some beer, right?
Oh, yeah. That was kind of a joke. I'm not a beer drinker. I'm more of a whiskey guy, my old bartender days. But, yeah, we have a local thing doing that. Yeah.
Give me a good single malt.
Vodka myself, or a good brandy.
Jack Daniels is mother's milk, brother. No doubt.
Alex Moore, welcome to the show. So I really love getting into the spirit of Halloween. It's not just about decorations or about handing out candy to kids. I've got kids myself, so they're getting their costumes in order. My older daughter's got a costume from some character from Five Nights at Freddy. It's not even one of the animatronics. I have no idea what she's supposed to be. But my younger daughter wants to be Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas, so that's awesome. But I really just, it's like, for me, October itself, the weather's changing, the leaves are starting to die, and I'm a Confucia. Hello, I'm going to butcher a lot of German today, by the way, so you better come on and stop me.
It's Frankenstein.
Damn it. My niece is going as Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
And my nephew is going as Bob Ross.
Well, I love the texture of Halloween. And when I say the texture, it's like I said, it's the shadows getting long. It's the air kind of getting a bit drier. It's the leaves turning. But it's also, getting into material that really feels like October. I'm going to talk a little bit about reading as well as watching movies. But before that, I have to mention the number one thing that comes on in my house at least once a month all year round, actually, but it's part of our Halloween, which is Young Frankenstein, which I'm assuming you've all seen because you get the joke.
Several times.
Yes.
Know every word of it. Yes.
Willie the Monkey King's music channel of doom. No backdoor Gary today. Gary went out the back door.
We've got the we need to play the video. It's been broken.
Right. Oh. Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you know that back door would trigger a trap door?
So yes, Young Frankenstein. And I also have, this is my number one recommendation aside from watching the movie. And if you haven't seen Alf Jeebus, yes, it's Gary's Day Off. So this is Mel Brooks' book on the making of Young Frankenstein.
Oh my gosh.
It's wonderful. It's got lines from it. It's got color photos of the events, behind the scenes stories, but it's really wonderful. And what I love about this movie, two things. One, and it would be the obvious thing to talk about watching the Universal monster movies in the month of October. I mean, that's something I definitely do.
Mhm.
But these people, these actors who were just, do that. They, especially Gene Wilder, absolutely loved and cared about the Universal monsters. I mean, he had a passion for them. And I think that's where real parody succeeds. Is it's one thing to just make a spoof movie, you know, like a lot of, in the 90s, there were a lot of them that were just cash grabs, but they weren't made by people who were enthusiastic about the material.
Yeah, you've got to care about it to sell it, really.
Yeah. You know, it's obvious by these actors' portrayal that they knew the characters inside and out. Like Kenny Mars as Inspector Kemp.
Oh my God.
Genius.
You can make me crack up just looking at the pictures, man.
Oh yeah, and you do, because you love it so much, you know. And you quote, I don't know about you, but in our house, everything is quoted constantly.
Oh yeah, me and my brother have entire conversations in movie quotes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No
We
doubt.
must confirm the fact that he was indeed following in his grandfather's footsteps.
Footsteps.
And you all go,
Oh, it's been too long.
Yeah.
I don't
everyone
know the
goes,
cues.
what? Following
What?
in his
Yeah,
grandfather's
right.
footsteps.
Footsteps.
I told Anima I was going to butcher German. But I mean, it's wonderful seeing this book. They're just constantly cracking up on set. You know, and for those, I doubt anybody here hasn't seen it, but for anyone, just in case, this is the story of the great-grandson of the grandson of Baron Frankenstein.
That's Frankenstein.
Which he insists is pronounced Frankenstein because he's embarrassed by his history. But then he inherits the castle and finds the notes for his work, and he meets, you know, again. Let's see if I can hold it. He gets his assistant Inga and Igor. It's right. You know, and he says, you know, Igor comes in and Dr. Frankenstein. It's pronounced Frankenstein. You're putting me on. Do you also say Frederick Frankenstein?
Right, Frederick.
Every last line of this movie is hilarious. There's not a moment, or is it the Mandela effect?
Right.
I doubt it, because I see this movie every freaking month. So, I mean, let's see. There is something that I should have marked the page. Oh well, I won't read it. But essentially, they had so much fun making this movie. On the last day of shooting, everyone went home, and it was the end of the movie where they were in the honeymoon suite. They'd finished shooting, everyone went home, and Gene Wilder was sitting at the end of the bed, looking at Mel, and he said, "Mel, I've got a few ideas for some extra scenes I think we should shoot." You know, Mel just said, "What do you mean? It's done. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, it's perfect. What do you mean you want to shoot more?" He's like, "Mel, this is the most fun I've ever had in my life. I don't want it to end." I was just like, yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Young Frankenstein is the funniest movie ever. Nice
knockers. That's it.
Oh, thank you, Doctor. Yes, I agree. It's very hard to come to think of the only movie that I think I enjoy almost as much as Young Frankenstein, but again, it's not even a close second, is Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, Galaxy Quest is good.
But is not that's not a horror. That's not a Halloween themed thing. But yeah, that's the first recommendation. I don't know if any of you gentlemen want to add anything to Young Frankenstein.
Well, I have to ask you what's your favorite scene because I want to tell everybody what mine is.
Oh,
So, what's your
gee.
favorite scene?
I think it's the part where they're finding the lab, and he's holding the lantern up to the head.
Oh my God, yeah.
And well, there's two scenes when he's the long dead head, the one that's less dead, and then he comes, and then Igor's there, which is the thumbnail, and he goes, "I ain't got nobody," and scares the crap out of him.
Right.
And then, of course, the one that I just lose it every time, no matter what, is whose brain?
Yeah.
Did I put in
Someone named Abby.
Abby something.
Abby something.
Someone.
Abby Noble.
Abby someone.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the name.
Oh man, too much.
And when he's strangling him, you can hear.
Right, he's doing the charades. Oh my
God,
that is hilarious.
Yeah,
That's funny.
exactly.
Yeah, my favorite one is the cameo by Gene Hackman. The blind man in the cabin in the woods. It's too damn funny.
Well, if you
a toast
know,
to
if you're-
friendship, crack, and he just freaking busts the
When he's-
shit out of his mug.
He's okay. So anyone that doesn't know this scene, this is a play on from Bride of Frankenstein, where the monster. This very heartfelt scene where the monster comes in. Winston, do not start barking. I'm gonna shut the door because he's gonna start barking at people out there. But it's the blind man,
Yeah.
and he befriends the monster, and it's like this sweet, heartbreaking time that they spend together as friends. And it's implied in Frankenstein that it's, the relationship lasts a while because he learns to talk. And then
Yeah.
Now Cloris Leachman and I'm blocking on the other one's name. The
Terry
two
Garr.
women. What?
Terry Garr.
Terry Garr.
Terry Garr.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yes, there are crazy animals in the stream and my pets. Not Cloris Leachman, Terry Garr, and who plays his wife or his fiance?
God, I can't remember that girl's name. She was in Blazing Saddles too.
Madeline Kahn.
Madeline
that's
Kahn,
it, Madeline
yes.
Kahn. I always have a mental block on her name.
Yeah.
I think it's
Madeline
Kahn last name, probably.
Yeah, Madeline Kahn definitely sings that better. She's a trained singer. That's hilarious. And it's again Mel Brooks. So this, he's not so worried about offending people with the idea that the monster is about to rape her. He just finds a way around that by her going. When he unbuckles his pants, she just goes woof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the blind man scene, Gene Hackman plays it wonderfully, and he was tired of doing serious roles.
Yeah.
And he did that perfectly. Just the idea of, he's blind, so when he goes to pour the soup, he completely misses the bowl and pours it in the monster's lap.
Just awesome.
It's an amazing movie.
That's the slapstick part of it that I love the most is that that whole interaction there. It's great.
It's just like, again, we've watched the movie so many times in our house over the year. It's like visiting with family. And so to have that book as well and to read about their experiences, you can't help but love them individually, both as actors and as characters.
Right. I tell you what, I'd be interested to read that just to find out if Terry Garr's as sweet as she comes off being, because I've always enjoyed her. Again, you never know, but by reading that book, there were no prima donnas, no bad feelings. They were just all having such a fantastic time. There's stuff in there about the cameraman had to sit on the camera a certain way because he kept cracking up and it would shake the camera. And so their footage would be shaking. And finally, people were laughing so much on set. Mel Brooks said, I knew this movie was going to be a classic because people were laughing so much that I got everyone a silk scarf. And I said, if you feel the need to laugh, shove this in your mouth. And he gave everybody in the cast
or in the crew behind him. And he says at one point he turns around and every single last person has a silk scarf in their mouth. And he's like, that's it.
There it is.
So moving on, because this is, again, we're going to do this as a two-parter because there's just so much wonderful stuff. I feel like I should cover for a moment some reading. And I have over here, I got a lot of reading. I'll just flash some stuff up because we're not going to be able to talk about all of it. But honorable mention, Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein, which is a wonderful kind of abridged version of the book with fantastic illustrations. Of course, Edgar Allan Poe. I always every year read The Raven for Halloween. And if I'm alone, I act it out loud and have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have a copy of what I want to talk about, but here's Stephen King's Night Shift, his short story.
Good book. Good book.
Very good book. This is Stephen King at his best and will never be this good again. But I want to recommend something for anyone that goes driving and likes to listen to audiobooks or podcasts or whatever. Find The Mist in 3D sound. It was produced in the 1980s when, stereo was still new enough where they used gimmicks like 3D sound. It is, if I read the short story and it's good, I saw the movie and I think it's silly. It had some moments, but it was overall silly.
His stuff doesn't translate well to film.
No.
It doesn't.
But The Mist in 3D sound is this rare moment in time where someone in the 80s decided to do a radio play production with a full cast of actors. And I remember having a girlfriend at the time. We had driven to San Francisco for a weekend trip to visit some friends, and it didn't go very well. And we decided to leave early. So we drove back along the coast listening to this audiobook, and she had never heard it before. And I was feeling a bit sick. So I decided to kind of lay down, and she was driving. And this fog rolled in, so it was very hard to see the road. It was still in the day. So she's listening to The Mist in 3D sound for the first time. She had no idea what to expect from it. And this fog rolls in. I just remember waking up, because I'd heard it before, waking up at a gas station, just going like, oh, do we need gas or whatever? She's like, what did you just make me listen to? She was so freaked out by it. And it is it's an amazing, you wouldn't think in this day and age a radio drama would be something that people would be interested in, but it is so terrifying and so well done with the music and the sound effects. It really does give you the creeps. So that's a highly recommended story. Have any of you ever heard of it?
Never heard of it, but I imagine it's probably pretty good. I mean, you just look at what Orson Welles did with the little bit of tech he had back in the day. You can do anything with radio.
I used to listen to a lot of the old radio plays.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Dark Shadows started off as a radio play.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. A lot. I mean, the BBC did a lot of stuff in the 80s as well. They did a radio adaptation of Star Wars and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
This is a moment in time where I think, to me, it's things like this. It's the talent that came together in the 80s around Stephen King that really solidified him as an icon of horror. And not to diminish anything, like I said, you read books like Night Shift, his short stories, and one of my particular favorites on there is The Mangler, which is about an industrial laundry folding press that folds sheets that becomes possessed by a demon and starts folding people's flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they made that into a movie, and I don't remember. I think Robert Englund was in it, and the guy that plays Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. I remember having fun with it, but some of these stories, it's just, you really do have to read them.
You know,
Yeah, my favorite one in the book, I don't remember the name of it, but it's the one where the guy does battle with toy soldiers in his apartment. And it's
is
I
that
can't
a
remember
night
the name
shift?
of it. Is it in it might be in another one of his short story books.
It's
But
Ted Levine. Yes. Thank you, Frankenstein Jeeves.
yeah. hmm But yeah, I thought it was in that book. But
It
he
may
did a
be.
short
It's been a
story
while.
about the guy fighting the toy soldiers, and the apartment blows up, and this note falls to the ground and gives the inventory of what was in the toy box, right? And the nuke went off. It had one nuclear weapon or something like that was on the list. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
This is a very old book. I've had this probably since I was in my early teens.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, like I said, for people who have read Stephen King's recent stuff and go, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Stephen King, this is what Stephen King
That
really,
and The Stand are my favorite books that he's done.
I
Yeah.
never got into The Stand.
Oh,
We could, you know what, at some point we may have to have a whole Stephen King episode, because I'll get into trouble like I did with criticizing Werewolf by Night. But again, I think at the same time, it was not just Stephen King. It was I think Stephen King would have come and gone like a lot of other authors have. I think it was just the fact that so many great filmmakers and other storytellers kind of gathered around him and made so much more out of his stories. Like, you know, we got everything from Stanley Kubrick making The Shining, and I know how Stephen King feels about that, but Stanley Kubrick took it to another level.
I was fixing to say, there's nothing wrong with the movie. I know it's completely different from the book, but fantastic film. I mean,
so that's a good segue into it, because The Shining is definitely one of our annual Halloween watches.
Here's Johnny.
you know it, man.
And this movie, now again, there are still YouTube channels to this day making new videos about The Shining explained, or the different theories behind The Shining. And this is one of the things I love about just film in general is, you know, every once in a while you may get a film that's polarizing, but people never stop talking about it.
No.
Darius Munchausen, Kubrick can get away with it. Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can.
And here's my my thing with Kubrick and The Shining is Kubrick realized what Stephen King did not when Stephen King tried to direct his own version of The Shining, which is you have to remember the medium you're working in. And Stephen King wrote an excellent novel because he was excited about prose, and he did a really good job with it. And when he translated those prose into his own made-for-TV version, God, it was terrible. I mean, it was boring and it was silly, and all the things that were supposed to be that were scary in the book just came off as cheesy. So Kubrick kind of distilled the essence. He found the essence of what made that book so compelling, and he did a new interpretation of it. You know, it's still, as a filmmaker, I mean, I kind of feel like my movie, The Quantum Terror, is kind of like The Shining on a budget, but underground instead of in a hotel. But one of the things I love about The Shining and a lot of horror movies from the 80s, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but like I said, nowadays horror movies, they kind of, I don't know, they go through the same process. They're using the same techniques, the same CGI and you know, modern cameras.
It's all jump scares.
Yeah, well, so I want to talk about the texture of older horror movies. You know, texture is a big deal for me, and like I said, when I'm celebrating the month of October, you know, it's not like Christmas where it's, you know, I'm reflecting on the year, and I'm exercising gratitude and, you know, saying prayers and that sort of thing. This is more of just like getting into a mood that's just kind of again, I can't describe it beyond that texture. So when I watch something like The Exorcist, you know, you've got that film grain and you've got that makeup by Dick Smith and such amazing performances. And, you know,
existential questions, I guess, in the
Still
face.
in my mind, the scariest movie ever made.
Oh yeah,
It,
me
it
too.
just is. Everything else pales in comparison to me. Of course,
This-
I'm kind of biased. I saw it when I was 8 years old at my aunt's house and had to walk my brother home in the dark. He was 6. When just 2 blocks away, and it was the scariest walk I ever took. Man, I thought the devil was coming to get me.
I'll
crazy.
tell you a couple of quick stories about this. One is my wife had never seen it, and my wife is Catholic.
Ooh, yeah.
When we were dating, they released what they called the version you've never seen before. And yes, Darius, thank you for affirming what I said. So I took her to see it, and it wasn't really a date. We weren't dating yet. It was me and one other girl from work, because we all work together. And so I kind of made a fun thing out of it. I had seen it, and it freaked the hell out of me. So I decided to show up. I went to the local Catholic mission store, and I bought little glow-in-the-dark rosaries and handed them out. I said, okay, we're going in. And we went and saw it, and it freaked her out so much. She said she had a nightmare about being possessed. And then she told that to someone later on at another job she had. He said, oh, that's nothing. So my brother had seen it, and he said, I went to see it after. So what did he do? He got under my bed and waited for me to come home. And so when I'm going to sleep, he let me get into bed. He let me start to doze off, and then he started shoving underneath the bed. That's hilarious. And also his brother's a bastard.
Man.
Let's see. Never seen The Exorcist. My mom, who is terrified of horror movies, thought it was funny, kind of killed any interest. It's funny. There are some people that have told me that, like, oh, I found it funny. And I think it's not scary. And like I said, if you're used to, like you said, Joe's atmospheres, if you're just used to jump scares or being chased by a slasher, and that's what you find scary, this isn't what's scary about that movie. I would say it's more of, it's a realization of the evil that is rooted in just life in general, manifest as this demon.
Yeah, the thing about the movie a lot of people don't understand is it's not about Reagan. It's not about Blair's character. She's just the battlefield it takes place in.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the priest. I can't remember the character's name, but it's the one that's in a crisis. And the devil doing battle with each other. And it's I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I'm a believer myself that it scared me so much. That could have been what it was. I don't know.
Well,
but I've heard people that aren't believers say that it scared the hell out of them too. I mean,
I'm
it's
just jaded because I don't find any of these scary. The only movie that's ever scared me was The Swarm.
Oh, what? The fact that they made that movie, or the fact that the bees were on their way up, according to the news back then?
The fact the bees were coming.
Yeah, this is what's coming, right? Yeah. Oh my God, that may have been Irwin Allen's worst, but the
I was a kid when I saw it.
Yeah, me too. I was a huge fan of Irwin Allen, and I've seen it several times. The Exorcist. It's I don't know. Another thing that makes it kind of scary is it's shot in kind of a documentary style. It's not really, there's not a big soundtrack to it. The theme is famous, but other than that, all the drama takes place right there in the bedroom. So.
And it's all sets though, because they chilled the sets to get the breath.
Right.
And the staircase, they actually had a rig on a pulley. The cameraman was on a pulley rig so that they could pull him up the stairs to do tracking shots, because they didn't have steady cams back then.
Mm-hmm.
It does have that feeling. And it's just, the brilliant thing about it is it starts off with about 10 minutes in Iraq, I think, an archaeological dig in Iraq.
Yeah.
And it's so much of the movie is just building the mood. And again, that the texture, the atmosphere of it, the characters, and the impending fear of what's to come.
and the fact that you get to know these characters and you know, you see that their very souls are at stake, and it's almost, you know, when you actually get to the exorcism, yeah, it's not as scary. I think it's the buildup, the anticipation. My wife had never seen it before, so seeing it in a theater with her, and watching her, like I said, we weren't even dating at the time. Technically, we were, you know, I was kind of flirting with her, but, you know, just to see her experience it for the first time and have no idea what was going to happen was really great.
Yeah, just being in a theater can make some of these movies just magnified.
Yeah.
I took my daughter to see Jaws, and she had seen it several times. She inherited my love of film, and when she was a young adult, she's 31 now. She's still young, but I mean, when she was fresh out of college, basically, they had a local film house show Jaws, and I said, "Let's go see this." She goes, "I've seen that 100 times." I said, "Trust me, Amanda, you've never seen it on a big screen. Let's go see it." And we walked out of the theater. I said, "What'd you think of that?" She goes, "That is a lot scarier in a darkened theater than I ever thought it would be." I said, "Yeah, it makes a difference."
Jaws is more scary than a lot of the horror movies,
right?
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Some people call Jaws a horror movie. I feel it.
Jaws is a horror movie.
It seems more like an adventure, a man versus nature adventure movie to me than a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know, horror things happen in it. You know, anyone getting devoured by a shark is pretty horrific.
It always felt more like a monster movie to me.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't behave like a real shark. So.
Right.
That scene though, when they're putting barrels in him, trying to keep him up out of the water, and he takes 3 barrels down, right? The music, the score, everything that's going on the boat. I mean, I'm with him. It's an adventure. I don't think it's really a horror movie.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I know this is common knowledge, and I want to go back to the more Halloween themed stuff, but the barrels was because the shark didn't work. But again, it added to that that build up, that anticipation.
Yeah, you don't have to show everything, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I get the argument. It's just, you know.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I really love at Halloween, and I wanted to talk about, is a movie that does show everything and more. And there was just a new movie but I want to talk about why I love the original Hellraiser so much. And this movie, I think, is underappreciated because it is a budget movie. And it is, first of all, I think Clive Barker is an underappreciated master of horror as well.
The first book I ever read of his was a book called The Damnation Game, and it was awesome. And
I was just
talking about a warped mind. The quote I saw on the inside cover said, "I've seen the future of horror, and its name is Clive Barker," and it was written by Stephen King.
Yeah,
and he's a great horror mind. He's like Stephen King on hallucinogens. It's ridiculous, man. Some of the stuff he comes up with.
The first thing I watched of his was the Books of Blood.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the Books of Blood. I've got old copies of the Books of Blood. I'm very, very proud. They're old hardcover book club editions, and they're really cool.
I remember Book Club.
The great thing about Clive Barker, and especially, so I'll mention just honorable mention to The Damnation Game, and I'm going to say it. Everything that Neil Gaiman is, in my mind, is third-rate Clive Barker. Because if you read American Gods, it's just a watered-down version of The Damnation Game. It's the same plot. It's a guy that just got out of jail. He finds out his wife, I can't remember if his wife had left him and been cheating on him. In American Gods, she had been cheating on him and then died. And he gets hired by this mysterious, eccentric guy who is dabbled in, mystical, magical stuff. In Clive Barker's version, it's horrific, and it's never fully explained what's going on. It's told from the experience of this guy who's just he's a heroin addict, or I think he no, the guy's daughter's a heroin addict, but he gets into heroin because of her, and it's just insane stuff happens, and it's messed up.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about Clive Barker and why I love Hellraiser. Again, I'm gonna hold it up again.
Pinhead, baby.
Yeah, and Pinhead isn't even really the. I mean, he's the iconic monster.
The iconic visual.
The iconic
Cenobites.
visual, but the story isn't really about him. The story is a Cain and Abel story. It's two brothers, and one, when you meet the first one, he's, again, if you want to speak in terms of actual Cain and Abel, he's making sacrifices to demonic entities rather than to God. And the other brother, Darius is laughing at my comment. Yeah, I said it. Excuse me. But he's making the wrong sacrifices, and the brother is making the right ones, except that the brother has gotten a wife who is she likes the bad boys, and she's not that good of a woman. And this guy, anyway, he's seeking the demons of what he thinks is ultimate pleasure. And if you read The Hellbound Heart, it's explained more. But I mean, he finds those demons, and then he realizes that what they're offering, what his interpretation of what they're offering, isn't truly what they're about. And and then he escapes, but it's through means of murder, through blood, and he's seduced this woman into helping him. And again, Clive Barker really taps into, there's been all sorts of sequels and remakes, and people see the remake now, and I haven't seen it yet. I'm interested in it. I hope it's good. But I don't think that the people who tried to make more Hellraiser movies really understood the essence of what Clive Barker was doing, and taking that primal story of Cain and Abel and almost writing it as a Shakespearean play for the screen of, murder and betrayal and people advocating for their own demise in this really amazing, visceral, gory way. But I mean, everyone just sees Pinhead, they go, "Oh, Hellraiser is Pinhead." Hellraiser and pretty much everything that Clive Barker has written over the years goes so much deeper than that. So go ahead, John.
I'll say Hellraiser was always the box to me.
Right. Yeah. The key.
Well, I think there was kind of a little tongue-in-cheek wordplay in there that he was seeking the box. But it's I mean, seriously, I think that's.
I always thought there was a little bit of a vampire story to it too, because he has this person going out and getting him food, and he's we know he's trying to recreate his body so he can really get away from these guys. He's not mobile because he can't go anywhere. He's got to hide like a hermit until he puts his body back together, right? So yeah, I always thought there was a little bit of vampire to it.
It's a story of, essentially, I think if there was a moral to the story, it's that these are people who everything that they think they want and that they seek and they're willing to do horrible things for just damns them more.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is just, if you don't get that and you're making a Hellraiser, this is why the other Hellraiser movies don't land.
I've never watched another one.
Hellraiser 2 and even Hellraiser 3 are pretty good, but they do pale in comparison. They're written by Peter Atkins, who is a longtime Liverpudlian classmate of Clive Barker, who I've met. And he's a pretty brilliant writer in his own right. He also wrote a movie called Wishmaster for Wes Craven, if you've ever seen that.
Yep.
Kind of a goofy movie with Robert Englund, but pretty good, actually. Pretty entertaining. So let's see, how much time do we have left? We're actually doing pretty good.
My favorite Clive Barker is Nightbreed.
Nightbreed's good.
Yeah.
The monsters under the bed, right? Yeah. Where do they live? Yeah.
Nightbreed is kind of, I think, an homage to his old theater troupe that he used to make plays with, in my mind. I don't have anything to back that up. Oh, Dragon Bricks. Let's see what we got here. To me, first Hellraiser is about the obsession of a woman to get her lover back. Thirsty woman would do anything to get satisfied. So, and have we missed anybody? I just want to say, let's see. I don't know how many people. We're good. We got everyone.
Great.
Okay.
Yes.
So
before we move on to about what John mentioned, one of the small things I really dig about Nightbreed is the fact that David Cronenberg is in it.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah.
Who is another great movie director. You want to talk about body horror and stuff. That guy's awesome.
He's a recommend. I love Scanners. But I love the scene. I love the scene in Nightbreed where he's got the guy tied up. He's asking about, what's Midian, and he's going, he's like, "Are you part of it?" He's like, "I wanted to." And as he's like poking him with the knife, he's like, "Say I am death. Say it." And then he stabs him, and the guy dies. He goes, "Okay, then don't say it."
Yep.
I'm not talking about lying around dead. I'm talking around walking around my effing cell dead.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, another great line from that when they rescue Boone, and the guy the cop's freaking out, and his friend just goes, "I love a coward." Clive Barker's he's having fun with his stuff.
Oh yeah, most
and he
definitely.
finds great actors. I will say too, even though I'm not a big Scott Bakula fan, I loved Lord of Illusions.
You find out the depth of his acting ability watching that movie. Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's better than advertised. Mm-hmm.
It's still a great movie, and I recommend the short story "The Last Illusion," which was I won't say it's based on because it's such a different story.
Inspired.
But that's a short story where it's terrifying, and if they made a movie out of that, man, it would be awesome. But I think Lord of Illusions is definitely because it's more of a Clive Barker's attempt, and not the best attempt at a noir detective supernatural thing.
That's what it came off as to me. Yeah.
But it's still, I love it. I have on VHS, I have the unrated version, which I've not been able to find on video on demand or on DVD. But since we've covered some horrific stuff, I want to do a little bit about the family stuff, what my family and I put on to make it feel like Halloween. Now I'm not going to talk about Hocus Pocus because I'm a guy.
Right, you're not
it's
a girl.
Kind of a girl's Halloween thing, and
yeah, it is.
I don't mind it.
Practical Magic is another one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stuff like that. I'm not, but when I was a little kid and I introduced this to my girls, it was the Garfield Halloween special. And this DVD has all the seasons on it, but they really loved this. This is now the great thing about this, we talked about John Carpenter, and I can't remember if that was before the stream started or not. But The Fog, this is Garfield does a parody of The Fog.
Oh man,
where if you've ever seen this, it's only half an hour, but he takes Odie trick-or-treating, and they find a boat, and they try and boat across the other side of this river to go trick-or-treat more, and they end up on a little island with a hut on it with an old man who says that he was the cabin boy left behind 100 years ago to guard the pirate treasure, and the ghosts of the pirates are coming back for it tonight. And none of you have ever seen this. This is not
no,
really,
but it sounds like The Fog, no doubt.
It's just this really funny. If you were a fan of Garfield cartoons, it's just this really funny thing that I enjoy with my family every year. And Garfield dresses as a pirate. Garfield and Odie dress as pirates as their Halloween costumes, so that just adds to the mayhem.
Right.
But it's got a couple of great songs. And Garfield has a pirate song, which is very short. It goes like this, and I love it, and I sing it when I've been drinking. It's 60 men all lost at sea, all of them drunk except for me. It was I who had to sail the storm with nothing in sight to keep me warm. Yo ho, over the raging sea we go. Yo ho, wherever the four winds blow. Hey, and that's it.
What's the name of this thing?
It's just Garfield Halloween special.
Garfield Halloween special. I'll have to check that out.
You got to find
Well,
that
I
one.
love a
And then,
good
of
sea
course-
shanty, man. No doubt.
Yeah, it
You
was
know,
like,
my guy's a pirate that I
Yeah.
write about. I love it. Yeah.
and then of course, every year there is well, no, I won't get to the one that I said is not Halloween. Now, this one's for littler kids, but this was a book that I used to read to my girls when they were really little. So if you have little ones, I won't spend too much time on this, but Room on a Broom is a very charming British story about a witch finding room on her broom for all these different characters who want to ride with her. And it's really cute. And I used to read it with British accents, different accents. But what I really loved about this was it's CGI, but this is something that inspired my own work. All the backgrounds are miniatures, so they're actual practical miniatures. So if you've got little kids, I don't recommend this if you're over the age of 8, or at least you're going to watch it with someone over the age of 8. But also, I think Halloween never begins until you've watched It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie
I was
Brown.
to say, that's the kid's show for me, right?
Yeah.
There. Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. Yeah.
It's now the great thing about Peanuts is that it's for kids, but they always find humor that the adults can appreciate. And my wife and I always enjoy Sally freaking out at Linus and threatening to sue. You owe me restitution.
Right.
Because he made her sit in the pumpkin patch on Halloween night and miss tricks or treats. So, again, a great one. And I will also recommend, now there's a story behind this. I got to meet on many occasions, because I would go and see him talk, and then I did get to work for him briefly, Ray Bradbury, who was a big Peanuts fan. And he... but when he saw Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, he was disappointed. He said he kicked the TV because he wanted there to actually be a Great Pumpkin.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and also honorable mention, I'll just flash my shirt the moment. There's also Pumpkinhead. Great Halloween time watch.
Yeah.
With starring Lance Henriksen, directed by Stan Winston, who did all the effects for Aliens, Terminator, Jurassic Park, or the practical effects anyway.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest practical effects
guys ever. Stan Winston. Yeah. Anybody that read Fangoria magazine back in the day knows his name.
Yep. Everybody.
Him and Baker. Yeah.
Rick Baker. Yeah. Everybody that I know in special effects that has a name.
Was it Tom Savini?
Tom Savini's another one. I think I always think about zombie movies when I think of him.
Yeah.
Tom Savini. I mean, Tom Savini's done some great work, but he did a lot of the zombie stuff. And Rick Baker is awesome, but I think Stan Winston was the one that really cemented what I would call this. I mean, there was Dick Smith, but who was a legend to all of them. But Stan Winston really cemented the whole idea of again the celebrity effects artist. And really worked along with people like Rick Baker too, and Rob Bottin. Used to talk to Ray Bradbury loved Disneyland as well. But yeah, anyway, so we'll get back to Ray Bradbury. But Ray Bradbury, we should do a Stan Winston episode. Ray Bradbury didn't like that there was no Great Pumpkin, so he wrote a book called The Halloween Tree, which was his kind of ode to Halloween and the history of Halloween. And I don't think it was his best work, even though Ray Bradbury is probably hands down one of my favorite authors ever.
Oh yeah.
But they made a cartoon out of it with was it Hanna-Barbera or was it blacking on his name that did Tom and Jerry? Anyway. It was an animated special of it. It didn't take off like Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, but it was narrated by him and voiced. One of the voices was Leonard Nimoy.
What's the name of it again?
The Halloween Tree.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give some reading recommendations for Halloween because I read Ray Bradbury every October. When I go to pick up my kids from the car line at school, I have to sit and wait in the car, and so I've always got a book. It's always Ray Bradbury in October. This year it's I Sing the Body Electric, which is a little less Halloween-y, but last year it was
From the Dust Returned, which was kind of his version of the Addams Family. And the book cover is actually illustrated by Charles Addams, who he was friends with, and they were going to do more together. But I think Charles Addams, I forget what happened, I think that it was like Ray Bradbury was already very old, and Charles Addams, I think, had passed away. I can't remember the exact reason that they never ended up doing it. But From the Dust Returns features stories about a family of ghouls, whether it be ghosts or vampires or other strange creatures, like their Uncle Einar, who had bat wings. And then there is, oops, I accidentally knocked my cord. And then Homecoming is one of the excerpt stories out of that. And this version I have is signed by both Ray Bradbury and Dave McKean, who did the illustrations for it. So we talked about Neil Gaiman. I think that Dave McKean is one of those really great, unusual, surrealist artists that does mixed media stuff that I love so much.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's a fun book. So I recommend, always read a little something, whether it be Bradbury or Poe on Halloween, or Clive Barker. And boy, I'm getting through a lot of this stuff a lot.
I'll tell you, before you get off the kids stuff, one that I always showed my kids was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's probably my favorite Disney Halloween.
Of course.
Yeah. The animated one, just about Ichabod trying to get home.
There is actually on Disney Plus, and before Disney Plus, I actually bought this for my girls on DVD because I think it came on TV or Disney Channel once, and they obsessed over it. Is Disney's House of Villains.
Yeah.
Bill Barkley. Thank you for watching. Mm-hmm. I see you. I acknowledge you. Oos. Nobody that's not a WWE fan's gonna get that.
Oh, Oos. I know who you're talking about. Bloodline, baby. What's up?
Honorary Oos.
That's it, honorary Oos.
Anyway, but
let's not derail here. Come on now.
Yeah. Still haven't watched Halloween Ends. Yeah, I've only ever watched the first Halloween movie. I've avoided the rest.
You should.
Yeah, and you should. Before the stream started, I said, when you watch Halloween, if you've never seen Halloween and then you want to watch Halloween 2, watch The Fog and Prince of Darkness instead.
Absolutely.
You'll have a lot more fun because it's still that boiled down essence of John Carpenter and what makes him so great. But yeah, there's Disney's House of Villains. I think it's on Disney Plus right now. And it's this kind of anthology that, it's strung together by a new animation, or a fairly new animation, but they've got Legend of Sleepy Hollow on there. They've got a lot of the classics, like when Goofy, Donald, and Mickey went ghost hunting.
Oh man. Wow.
They've got the one where Huey, Dewey, and Louie are getting ragged on by Donald, so they make friends with a witch who antagonizes him. So it's all these classic Halloween, like back when the Disney animations for those characters were, being done in competition with like Warner Brothers and those like the Bugs Bunny cartoons. So they're really fun. So yeah, along with Legend of Sleepy Hollow, absolutely recommend that. What else?
There's nothing better than the Headless Horseman throwing that pumpkin at him.
Yeah, it's a classic image. And there's a great, if you go to Corridor Crew's YouTube channel, they have animators react along with visual effects artists react and stuntmen react. But they did a whole breakdown of how brilliant the animation in Legend of Sleepy Hollow is.
Oh, yeah.
The Fog original is great. The trash remake with Tom Welling is awesome.
God.
I
still haven't seen that.
Yeah.
No. There's certain movies shouldn't be remade. You can't improve on perfection. I'm sorry.
Well, I will say, let me just shut the door because the dog keeps threatening to bark. So
you can't improve on perfection, Chris. You can't.
Well, again, those movies like The Fog and Prince of Darkness, and maybe it's because I'm older and just those movies were new to me when I was a kid, and they were happening now, so to speak, when I was a kid. Like they were exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And
but there's just a texture to the practical effects, the fact that they were on a budget. The film stock wasn't the best quality film stock, so it had that kind of grindhouse, color wash, or Sleepy Hollow TV series, which crossed over with Bones. I had a friend that liked that. I never saw that.
It was good. It was good. It wasn't a horror show, but it was good. I thought I
the
liked
Monster of the Week show.
I liked the way they linked Ichabod's character back to the American Revolution. I thought that was cool. But then again, you know me, I'm a big Revolutionary War nut, so
Yeah, my friend that liked it was a big libertarian, so she was.
My favorite line in that show was it was one of the first episodes. He's in the car with the chick, she's a deputy sheriff or something, and he's looking at a receipt, and he's like, 8% sales tax. You do know we fought the revolution over a 2% tax, right? What do you put out?
Yeah, it was for like a bottle of water or something like that too, which
it was silly, man. But I just cracked up when he said that. It was funny.
So speaking of remakes, actually, and speaking of movies with texture, because I've got much more, but so obviously,
look who's here,
Keith. How's it going?
Keith.
Hey guys.
Big Daddy.
So I don't know if you've been listening, but we're coming to the end of our hour. Is everyone cool with going on a little longer? We'll go on.
Good.
We'll cover one more thing, and then I've still got more stuff, but we'll save that for part 2. It's funny. One of the things I wanted to cover off right from the bat was another thing that's kind of a kid's thing, but also really cool. But we'll do that next episode. But with texture, I love the first Evil Dead.
Oh yeah.
Evil Dead 2 is also amazing, but I love the spirit of Evil Dead. So when I was working in a movie theater nights and I saw that they were doing the Evil Dead remake, I didn't think it was going to be much. But this particular remake is probably one of my favorite horror movies now. I don't know if any of you have seen it. Have you?
I've refused to watch it because I don't think Evil Dead should have been remade.
Once again, how do you improve on perfection?
I watch it.
Evil Dead should have been remade again.
Well,
watch it.
Evil Dead 2 is pretty much a remake of Evil Dead, but
it's a good movie. It's a little different. It's more dark, more serious. But I like both versions. I like what?
Okay, so this is what I like. This is what I think is the key to making a successful remake, and I think it's what John Carpenter knew when he made The Thing, which is why make a remake unless you have something new to say about the material.
That's a fact. No, I can get behind that. Yeah,
and
for sure.
And this remake has done that. It said, okay, what is it? What's the thing that we can do differently here that will change the whole dynamic of it? And that is what if we took it more seriously? What if we made the demonic force? Because especially in Evil Dead 2, but it's kind of like, there's really no rules to the Deadites. It's just kind of like whatever bonkers stuff can happen, and you have a lot of fun because it is. But this one is just, what if we took the concept of the Deadites and played it more like you would with The Exorcist, more seriously? What if, what happens if this malevolent, demonic, masochistic spirit would possess you? What would happen and how would you handle that? And to take the idea of the main character, being, or one of the main characters being, the reason that they're at the cabin is not just, hey, we're just going to party for the, at this dirty old rundown creepy cabin for the weekend. They're there for a particular reason. And it ties into the character arc that she goes through. So I definitely do recommend the Evil Dead remake. It does not detract at all from my love of the original Evil Dead, and it doesn't disrespect it. These days modern remakes or continuations of franchises are made by people who obviously don't care or even actively hate the franchises. This was produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, that's I was fixing to say that has some clout behind it because those are the two guys that made the first one. And,
Yeah,
and so I could understand that. And to your point, saying something new, the thing, I mean, that 50s version was my favorite monster movie growing up.
yeah.
And when he remade it and did it from the source material, a short story called "Who Goes There," he had something different to say. It's a completely different movie, you know. And yeah, if it's that kind of thing, I'll definitely give it a chance. But a lot of these things like The Fog and those kind of remakes, why?
It is hard to reasonably try to find something different to say, depending on what it is. I mean, after decades of taking a run at Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman.
Right.
The unfortunate thing is that we've raised generations of people who are more used to television and more used to seeing other things rather than reading. The key is to understand that you have an idea here. And that if you're really familiar with the source material, which you should be if you're going to attempt anything, whether it's an adaptation of or a new version of something, you should at least familiarize yourself with the original source material. A lot of people don't read in Hollywood. And so
are you taking notes there, Marvel writers? Please do.
They've got reader. They literally pay people to read it for them, and then just report back what it is.
Let me not come down all on the Marvel people, because this was a thing even before superhero movies. For the last 20 years, you've had readers in Hollywood reading scripts for other people. Yeah. And I think the moment you began to get people who were working in Hollywood that were further away from what the original founders of Hollywood were, which were people that actually ran movie theaters and knew about trying to market and sell movies directly to the public. The further away you got from that, the further away we got from, in my opinion, the sanity of working and creating films.
Yeah.
And so now we're spending more money on marketing than you are on even shooting movies. That's the insanity of what goes in right now. Now, horror films, you can shoot one cheap.
Yeah, that's why they keep making them.
That's right.
No doubt. They pump them out more than any other genre, no doubt.
So if you can keep that in mind, but it's still, you run across people who have never, ever read Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
They've never read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
And that's a shame. It really is, because, you know, a lot of people don't know that the story of Bram Stoker's Dracula is people's firsthand accounts of Dracula. It's not even that's how they tell the narrative, is through other people's interactions with him.
And that's where Carrie comes from. See, a lot of people don't understand that that's really was Stephen King's idea for writing the novel Carrie, is that he wrote it using the same basic techniques that Stoker did with Dracula.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you are making movies, I mean, you have to view it in that same way. So you could easily, cheaply do your own updated version of that using today's technology, which would be a lot of online.
But you've
blogs.
got to go back to the source material, which, to Chris's point, I did not know that about that Evil Dead one. I didn't know that Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi were behind that. So I'd definitely be interested in watching that show.
Well, Keith, I don't know if you were listening earlier, but and it was kind of one of the things that I addressed when I was talking about Hellraiser. Was that, you know, people just kind of think Hellraiser now is the Cenobites, Pinhead particularly, and I haven't seen the Hulu version yet. I don't know if it's any good, but
I hear it's good. Everybody that I've heard comment,
if it plays to, like I said, Clive Barker to me is Hellraiser. So if it plays to the same themes and ideas that Clive Barker incorporated in there, you know, then fine, you know, and people One of the things that kind of I saw a behind the scenes trailer for the new Hulu Hellraiser, and I kind of got a little irked because I felt like they were gaslighting Clive Barker's work in a way, I think unwittingly, but they were just talking about, you know, the same schmeal. Like, we've got transgenders and inclusivity and that sort of thing. And I was like, if you ever read Clive Barker's work, he was the original. He was doing that stuff before any of you, probably a lot of them were even born. But, you know, he was working those themes and those kind of characters into his stories.
Absolutely.
You know,
and at the time, remember when he was writing this, we're talking late 80s, early 90s. We're talking, that was scary to people.
Oh, yeah. Well, even he said, you know, I remember it was in the 80s he was writing it, but when he was writing the Cenobites, you know, he was writing them, using that S&M horror. He said, you know, and then in the 80s and like the clubs and stuff, it's like suddenly there were people literally doing that stuff to themselves as like performative art. And he's like, I never thought I would see that. I mean, it even kind of startled him. And he's gay. He's, you know, very openly gay. And if you see his artwork, you know, so to see the new Hulu going like, yeah, we're being inclusive and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, do you even know what you're acting in? Do you know? You know?
Have you seen any of the world that he created? Come on, man.
Well, and that also leads me to a few of the other things that have happened. I mean, you know, Penny Dreadful was an amazing series. And it was something that takes on even more, in my opinion, it's even more incredible if you're used to actually understanding and having read Penny Dreadfuls, let alone many of the novels that inspired the original series. I think where we are right now is almost like everything's kind of like a gumbo, but half of the stuff that's in there are just phony ingredients because the people that are doing things have no real understanding of where it comes from. So really, half the people doing things are just sort of taking shots in the dark.
And to speak to Penny Dreadful, and also, I think, was it Bill that mentioned Ash versus the Evil Dead?
Yes, yeah, that's Bill.
So Penny Dreadful, I loved the first 2 seasons. The third one totally fell off the rails for me, and I was very disappointed. But that was a good show, and I had some good creepy stuff in it. I think that the pilot episode was brilliant.
It's a movie. The pilot might as well be a movie. You could show that right after Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah,
and have a good time with it.
I've never seen it, guys, but I've heard good things about it.
It's gothic horror. In
the
best sense.
Don't watch the 3rd season is all I'll say.
Okay, I'll put it on my list.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, I have a love-hate relationship with because there's a lot of that movie the things in it that I like. The acting and the script are working against all the other amazing things.
I was fixing to say some of the casting choices had a lot to do with that.
You could get Penny Dreadful, City of Angels too.
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing about that is that I will always be indebted to that film for bringing back one of the characters that was, you know, people like me would always use as sort of like that telltale sign of telling whether or not someone had actually read the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Quincy? Yeah, Quincy in all the different versions that Hollywood has ever made was a character that, unless you read the book, you did not know existed.
Mm-hmm.
So having the cowboy in there was very important. He does play a role. And if you understand the mentality behind the making of that book, which I think partially was covered in Stephen King's book, Dance Macabre, if you can find it, get it, read it, and you will cover all kinds of things, as he just basically writes his entire book about horror.
Yeah,
and his connection.
I have a copy of it. I've read it several times.
Oh, geez, that is amazing. But I think to Hollywood today, if you really, really have something new to say, more power to you. But if you're going to try to take on something that's already been done, you can't break the rules unless you know the rules.
And that's going back to the source material.
That's right.
I was just going to say, getting back to what this whole thing started on. I mean, just look at Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's obvious when somebody has a vested interest in something they're passionate about. Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man movie, and I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and so is he, and it shows on the screen.
All three,
Yeah.
because of what happened. Something happened to Sam Raimi on that third film that should never ever happen.
The corporation got involved, and that.
But let me be a little finer on that. When your own producer stabs you in the back, that is a sacred relationship between producer and director. And if you cannot trust the person who is your producer, you really have no hope. I mean, just ask the people behind the newer version of Hellboy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you had was a director, producers, and writers who were all on different pages. They were not all on the same page. And when you get things so bad that you're having fights on the set, that is a production that is literally out of control.
Yeah, and it shows on the screen. I always thought that Spider-Man 3 was a perfect film right up until Eddie Brock got the symbiote. I always thought we ended that movie right there, and then had a whole next movie with him being Venom. That would have been better.
Well,
bring it back to horror, though. I want to bring it back to the Halloween themes.
Yep.
I will say this for the Spider-Man movies with Sam Raimi directing. He always had an element of horror that he was paying homage to. Like the scene where Spider-Man first learns he can climb walls is very much like The Fly, like Cronenberg's The Fly.
Yep.
And his Dr. Octopus scene was very much like when he was in the surgery.
Oh yeah, when he wipes out all those doctors, that's a scary part.
Yeah, but here's an additional thing about Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi knew something that a lot of Spider-Man comic book fans didn't know. Okay? We were talking about this just the other day at Gabe. But because of Denny O'Neil, who was Stan Lee's assistant before he went to DC, he revealed that there was a secret to Stan Lee and his version of the Marvel Universe that he began with the beginning of the 1960s. Everything that he created was based on his love of horror. Everything. So when you look at, like, say, those films like in the 1950s where you would have the you look at stuff like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, or you look at some of the big kind of goofy creature features like
They.
Well, think of it this way. Spider-Man really is a creature feature horror. Now, Stan had said he could have very easily have had this be the thing where the spider bit Peter, and Peter wound up waking up the next day with, a bug face and 6 arms and all of
something they did later on in the books. Yeah.
He didn't want to do that. He wanted to go a different direction. The same thing with the X-Men, the same thing with Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is the ultimate quintessential horror. You have your scientist that goes against the laws of nature and ends up affecting the lives, especially, ironically, of the number one supporter in his life, his best friend, who is now cursed to
be a monster for the rest of his life. Yeah.
And so it's all creature feature. Iron Man is body horror.
Yeah.
It's, what if you had no heart? What if you woke up one day and your heart was gone? And it's all based on that. So for Sam Raimi to do Spider-Man and to do the things that he did that with the knowledge of understanding that that's really where Steve Ditko and Stan Lee were coming from.
Bill mentioned Venom again. We talked about Venom. The origin of Venom in the movie is very much the origin of the Blob.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the movie,
he's doing the best he can with it. Now, going back to Evil Dead, Sam Raimi, because we mentioned Ash versus the Evil Dead. There's another example of taking an idea in a completely different direction, because the first Evil Dead was horror with a little bit of camp just because of the budget. The second one, they decided to up the camp to make it fun.
Then you got Total Camp in Army of Darkness.
Yeah,
no
and
doubt.
then Army of Darkness was like sword and sorcery with, like the Deadites.
That's where they cranked up the awesome to 11.
Oh yeah, and it was,
man.
Great. Yeah, and they cranked up Bruce Campbell's character of Ash to the extreme, which so from there they diverged in, like I said, the more serious Evil Dead movie, which again, it is a huge recommend for me. And then Ash versus the Evil Dead was just like, I mean, I think they really knew in just saying it's not the Evil Dead anymore. It's Ash versus the Evil Dead and cranking his character up to 11. And he just did some amazing, like, gross out slapstick. Like, the scene where he's fighting naked cadavers in the morgue and the intestines suck his. Well, no, it's just,
Look, any TV show that could introduce Lee Majors playing Bruce Campbell's dad, you are automatically cool.
Yes, you are. That's badass. Yes.
The whole show was fantastic, and I think it ended on a good note too. Like they said, I forget the reason I guess it was ratings or whatever, but I was like, you know what? I think if you tried to keep that going forever, you get diminishing returns. I think it ended on a great note, and who knows what Evil Dead Rise is going to be like. Evil Dead in a High Rise. Maybe it'll be Poltergeist 3. Who knows? But again, it's just like I said, knowing the essence. But I think we should wrap it up because I do want to do the 2-parter next week. Next week, I'm gonna bring out a few other things because I think we covered a lot more than I thought we were going to get to cover. But
did you guys cover Cabin in the Woods?
Not yet. No.
I don't like Cabin in the Woods.
What?
Sorry.
What?
I'm not a Joss Whedon fan.
You don't have to.
My God. We can talk about that, but I usually get in trouble when I say I don't like something that you guys don't like, and then I'm on the ropes.
I understand. I do understand.
Man,
I'm giving you a hard time.
Everybody's got their opinions about
everybody's
things, man.
That's
they
right.
Really do.
I just like the fact that it was very unusual and that it had an ending that I don't think a lot of people saw coming.
Oh, I didn't see it coming when I first started watching the movie.
Nobody does.
I was like,
when you get to the end of that movie, it's like wow.
All right, so next week we are going to talk about Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
Because I won't deny you this because a lot of people have opinions on it. Just don't hurt me too bad when I give mine.
What did you think of Constantine, the television series?
I never saw the television series, but I did like the movie actually. So
okay, well that's two different things. The Constantine
is two different things.
The Constantine television series is an actual adaptation of the character of the comics. Whereas the Constantine movie with Keanu was done by the woman who was put in charge of the X-Men franchise for Fox. So there's a reason why it's different.
Keanu Reeves' character in Constantine is a much more sympathetic character.
Yeah.
The guy from the comics, the British asshole, he is not a sympathetic character at all. He is a pain in the ass.
We can talk about that next week as well because I definitely have good things to say about the movie. I think there's anyone who wants to write movies, there's a lot to learn from the Constantine script and how it was done. Especially,
it's a good example of how to change something. If you wanted to change,
I'm not saying it was bad. It's a good take on it, but it's not the guy from the comic books.
Yeah, Bill, you are a lot nicer than I am. To me, anything with the CW or anything it's a crock of S. That's the reason why I called them losers of tomorrow, because it's the leftover show. It's all the additional actors and characters they didn't have the heart to fire, and they made a whole show around it.
Right.
Nothing against the actors, but I mean, the show was craptacular.
But the one thing that they did right was their casting of John Constantine on that network, on CBS
well, they just
and CW. They
took the one from NBC and just brought him over, but they neutered him.
Yeah, they did. They did. I'm just saying that casting is perfect, and I could definitely see that guy.
Guillermo del Toro thought the same thing because that was the actor that he was going to use in his version of Justice League Dark.
Wow.
Oh, was it?
Oh yeah, he was going to make a whole Justice League Dark movie. He loved that actor, so he told Warner Brothers, "I'll make this movie for you. I'll give it my magic, but I want that actor from the television series to be my John Constantine."
That's how good the casting was of John Constantine.
That's how good that was.
Yeah, Matt
Well, if you're
Ryan's amazing.
Yeah, if you're a director, you know the value of good casting. So if you find someone that's right, you want to hold on to them for sure.
Matt
Greg
Ryan is
says that
perfect.
Cabin in the Woods is an asylum. I thought he was saying an asylum film, but you know, we will cover that. And next week, because I do want to wrap this up because I got other stuff I got to do, but I want to cover my favorite stop motion animation film outside of Nightmare Before Christmas. Oh, what is it? I said all right. And I said Constantine was, don't get me wrong, Legends as a whole is awful.
Yeah.
Question: do you consider Devil's Advocate a horror movie with Keanu Reeves and Pacino? I haven't seen Devil's Advocate. So I can't...
It could be. It could be. Yeah.
It's a thriller. It's not really horror.
I would put it up there with Angel Heart.
I like Angel
Yeah,
Heart.
and Angel Heart isn't a horror movie though. I don't think either.
Well, that's a whole.
It's a thriller too. Yeah.
Angel Heart makes me feel dirty after.
It should make you feel dirty. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
But especially since it makes you go, ooh, Lisa Bonet, and then when you find out more about Lisa Bonet, you're like, oh,
whoops,
oh,
yeah, oh man.
Anyway, so next week I do want to cover, like I said, my favorite animated horror themed film outside of Nightmare Before Christmas,
Frankenweenie.
Pride.
There you go.
And
Corpse Bride.
And
Very
also,
good.
I want to talk about, again, I've talked about this before, but Shiver by Junji Ito, and kind of get a little more into the weeds of the creepy ass stories this guy can tell in comics that, again, stay with you. I mean, and this is the mark of good, like I said, all the stuff that we're talking about here. The reason that I like to indulge in it in October is that it stays with you. Even when you're not watching it, you're not reading it, you're thinking about it, and you're seeing the autumn leaves around you and the shadows are longer, and you're considering them. And it just adds to, you know, the mood of October and the Halloween season, you know, before we get into the more celebratory Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I just love it. And, you know, oh, and also we will talk next time about, I know Keith is going to like this, the Hammer Dracula movies, which I
there
also
you go.
put on.
Christopher Lee.
I'm in for Hammer movies.
And The House on Haunted Hill. Last Man on Earth is fun too, but The House on Haunted Hill is one of my favorite Vincent Price movies. So we will talk about that as well. So that is all I've got to say. I know you guys will have more to say, but I want to keep it to next weekend. But any last words, or should we just have Martin take us out?
I would like to suggest that we look at Phantasm as well, a little sci-fi horror.
I like that idea.
Because that is one of my favorites ever.
Yes.
And can we talk about my favorite Halloween movie, Halloween 3?
There you go.
Season of the Witch.
And please trick or treat.
Trick or treat.
Yeah, I like it. What's wrong with that?
My final thing is hammerfilms.com. We're coming up on November 5th, everybody. So if you're a Hammer film aficionado, you know what November 5th is.
Go watch that 70s fans show on it. We did one not too long ago. It was pretty good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
November 5th, everybody.
I have to check out Halloween 3. I haven't seen that one, but Phantasm, I'm looking forward to that. That's definitely a great suggestion.
Yeah, we could have a whole show about Halloween 3 and how that was supposed to transform the entire series. It was supposed to be an anthology where they had different Halloween stories every movie.
I'm going to see if I can find that on demand before next Tuesday. I would definitely want to check that out.
Because it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. It's a totally different movie.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew
it
that.
has to do with high-tech witchcraft. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Trilogy of Terror, baby.
That's it.
Yes.
Trilogy of Terror.
Oh yeah, I think that's streaming on Amazon right now too.
And Curtis's Trilogy of Terror. Oh baby.
All right, we could go on forever. So part 2 next Tuesday. We all going to be there?
I'm going to be here.
I will be here, brother.
All right.
No problem.
Happy October. Take us out, Martin.
Okie dokie.